here. So past generations could build a stable life through consistent labor, even without advanced education, but today's workforce faces a different condition. This is coming from Jamie Dimon. Now, not a surprise to any of us here on the Uneducated Economist as we break down the Cantillon essay on economic theory, understanding that ever-increasing amounts of new money that pours into the system will separate the rich from the poor. Very few people will be able to internalize it in the sense that Cantillon had described, because the mainstream media will cloud that message. Very much like what has taken place right here. Blaming AI for this obvious separation that is happening and how the workforce is declining over time, you can see within Jamie Dimon's statements that they are trying to direct the blame anywhere but on the actual problems, which is the banking system and the issuance of debt and all that other stuff that we know isn't going to go away. All right. Says here, when you graduate, whether it's high school, community college, or college, you need the skills to get the job, Diamond says. Goes on. It is not enough anymore to say, I can work hard. In the old days, you could be in the 10th grade, get a factory job in Detroit, and eventually you could afford a family, a home, a car. And that may not be true anymore. Boom, right? How many times have I said this over and over again? And it's not because of AI, right? AI is a major contributor to it, and we can blame AI if you want. But Cantillon described it hundreds of years ago that it's the underlying economic force that are separating the rich and the poor from ever-increasing amounts of new money that comes into the system. I mean, I've been saying it for years now, way before this AI push that has been coming through. Not before, I mean, obviously AI has been on its way for a while. But I have been describing the underlying economic force that is now playing out within our economy that is creating the situation we now face. And although you can find AI to blame, the real result of what we see is separation between the rich and the poor every time you introduce new money into the system. This is going to take place. All right. Is the audio coming through all right, guys? All right, soiling class, yeah, for sure. All right, goes on to say, skills are now the defining factor. The housing market offers one of the strongest signs of the shift. A measure from the National Association of Realtors Housing Affordability Index fell to 97.4 in QT, according to the trade group, indicating that the typical families may no longer earn enough to qualify for a mortgage on the modern priced home. And that is something that a lot of people are now facing. This is a very difficult time to now try and get out there and buy a house. Even a good job sucks, and that's what that says, right? The average job, which should have been like, even if you had a slightly good job, would be enough to get you into a house. But now it's not even close. Even a good job doesn't even get you there. Goes on. Cost pressures extend beyond housing, tuition, school fees, and childcare costs across the average U.S. cities rose from an index level of 100 in 1983 to 897 by September, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Incredible. Right? Nobody can afford to do it anymore. Again, you can blame all the things you want, but when you look at it from underlying economic forces, ever increasing in amounts of new money that poured into the system, the people who had first access to that money started spending that money at face value, raising the prices of everything, creating the supply-demand imbalances. This is the result of what we see from that. Right? Excuse me. Diamond said that these conditions make technical skills more valuable than they were in the earlier decades. He said AI and coding are areas we know we need the skills. Adding that industry training courses provide fast, accessible route into stable jobs. So he says 24% of workers age 18 to 34 are, quote, very worried that AI will replace their job within the next 2 years, while only 10% of average workers 55 and older reported the same level of concern, according to research published by Deutsche Bank in September. 24% as opposed to 10%. Yeah, the older population just isn't as concerned. Goes on here to say government projections reflect that the shift towards specialized roles. The U.S. Bureau of Statistics projects that the wind turbine service technicians will see employment grow by 50% in 2024 to 2034, with the median annual pay around $62,000. And entry typical requires a post-secondary certificate rather than a 4-year degree. But even at $62,000 a year, that's not that much money, and it's certainly not enough to go buy a house. Like maybe in some areas you might find that to be like, enough. But really, for the most part, that's really not that extravagant amount of pay. Solar photovoltaic installer jobs are expected to increase about 42% over the same period, with median pay near $51,860, typical entry through high school diploma plus on-the-job training. All right. Again, not nearly. I mean, that's, don't get me wrong. Like that's a lot of money for, say, like, a high school graduate getting out, and getting a job like that. But it's certainly not enough to raise a family on. Like it might be like cutting the very bare minimums, but it's certainly not going to be something that's going to be encouraging for the people to go out there and want to buy a house and get the family and buy cars and all that. Anyway, wanted to share that little bit with you, that Jamie Dimon is now recognizing the underlying economic forces, but actually calls out the symptoms as the blame, which is AI and all the technology advances and everything else. Knowing how it is that it really takes place by the underlying forces, knowing that ever-increasing amounts of new money that comes into the system will have the same effect regardless of who it is that's in power, who the banking system is. It doesn't really matter in that sense, knowing that if you put this new money into the system, you will find separation between the rich and the poor, and the average job just simply won't be enough. We are facing that consequence now. So what is really happening here is the Cantillon effect. Knowing that if you have an industrious people who have risen their standard of living, they are going to force out domestic manufacturers and have ever increasing amounts of foreign production coming in. That will separate the rich from the poor. The good manufacturing jobs, like what Jamie Dimon had talked about, like right here in the very first part, he said past generations could build stable lives through consistent labor, even without advanced education. But today's workers face different conditions, from rising living costs to rapid changes driven by technology. He said, it's not enough anymore to say, I can work hard. In the old days, you could be in the 10th grade, get a factory job in Detroit, and eventually you could afford a family, a home, a car. And that may not be true anymore. Exactly right. Right? Back in the day, that good manufacturing job was enough to provide you with everything that you could ever possibly have imagined to have the American dream with. If you were just slightly disciplined and you had a job and you showed up consistently every single day, like how many times have I said this? I've said this 400 times on this channel. Right? And you show up consistently and you are there, disciplined, saving that money, you could have that American dream. But that is gone. There's no hope in that idea anymore. And knowing it and recognizing it and seeing it as the reality for what it is through, right, the understanding of history, you don't blame AI. AI is a symptom of this. It is very important to see it as that, because when you start to blame AI, you would assume that there is some way of fixing it, but the only way of fixing it is to then cause pain and misery for everybody by churning off the new money. When the new money turns off, everybody falls into pain and misery. Now, the way this really goes down is to understand that when you put in new money in the system, the move into luxurious experience is going to create the separation. Now, I found where they come up with like these baby boomers and how do they describe it? Luxury communism, right? Oh, good Lord. Okay, luxury communism, where all these baby boomers got into the luxurious experience and then forced outcomes that would then deny other people from being able to achieve what it is that they have done. And I believe that is like, it is so obviously the symptom of ever increasing amounts of new money that has poured into the system that separated the rich from the poor. That is an evidence of it. That is evidence of it. All right. When you blame that, that is like, no, the only reason why that is even occurring right now is because of the underlying forces that has now created the circumstances in which that it is allowed to even occur. Right? Before, if it wasn't for the fact that it was a separation happening, then that wouldn't have occurred. And that's really important to really to kind of consider. When I think about some of these things that are happening right now, it's not that I'm trying to blame or accuse or anything out there. What I try to recognize is what it is that I can do for my kids. Like, I know that if it was just me, it wouldn't be no big deal. But there's a future coming to this, and if this problem is going to get worse going into the future, what is it that you can do today to start dealing with this outcome? A lot of people say, well, maybe if we just got the right administration in. Nah, that ain't gonna do it. They can't change the way this is going down. They can say they can. They can say, hey, we're going to bring all this good manufacturing jobs back, but then it don't happen. It won't happen. It can't happen. Right? Knowing that we have to be producing real goods and services in this nation in order to have the benefits of things like Social Security or the pay within our own income or anything else, we have to be able to exchange that for the real goods and services. If you do not produce the real goods and services, who is it that is producing the real goods and services that you are then trying to trade your benefits to? Think about that. If you're getting paid a Social Security check or you are getting paid an income, who is it that you are trading that to get the real goods and services? Because it isn't us. We're not doing it for ourselves. There was a time we did do that. When people say, oh man, we got to produce this stuff for ourselves, how do you do that and think, man, how is it that the average everyday person who already can't afford to do it is going to be able to afford to do this? You have to be able to produce real goods and services that you can then trade to the rest of the world. If you can't do that, then what you are going to find is a very difficult outcome as far as what it is that the average everyday person can do. It's sad to see it. It's sad to see it take place. I get it. Okay? I mean, I think about what it is that I'm experiencing here just within the retail sales of a lumber yard. The sales are down. Like, it's kind of funny to see, like, I can actually see the numbers. I'm not supposed to, but the sales are down, but not that much from last year. Right? The feeling that you get from the traffic that comes in is very slow. The mindset of the people who are making purchases is very reluctant. Right? It's not like an eager mentality. Now, I think about that when I look out there as far as the general population goes, 80% of the people out there are most likely living some sort of idea of paycheck to paycheck. And I mean, even people who earn a significant income live paycheck to paycheck. It's not like, that's not just because, you don't earn enough money. That's literally how you position yourself to deal with your finances, with your income, with your expenses. Living paycheck to paycheck can be anybody out there. But when you think about like 80% of the people who are essentially not necessarily the consumer that is now driving the economy, 80% of the people that you talk to are in a somewhat of a depressive state when they consider the inflationary scenario, when they consider, like, the problems that are coming from, their expectations of the administration. There's a lot of depression that is now floating around within the economy, within the people's conversations. And I think, well, that kind of makes sense. They're not participating in the economy. See, there was a time when they were very important. Back when Jamie Dimon was talking, back in the old days, when you could get a 10th grade job and get be in the 10th grade and get a factory job, and then eventually you could afford a family, a home, a car, you were the consumer. That's what you were. You were a consumer back then. You weren't just trying to maintain your life. You were expanding your operations. You were built, you had a house, you had the family, you had the stuff that went into it. This was the expansion of the operation. Right? But that doesn't happen now. You can barely maintain your life, your existence, eagerly working just for your own maintenance. Never once ever having the opportunity to really excel, because that opportunity, that was a long time ago when we were trading real goods and services to the rest of the world. Good high quality manufacturing jobs producing high quality stuff, sending that high quality stuff out there to the world, and in exchange for it, we got the money. New money, close to the source, right? Close to the new money coming in because of the factory jobs that we had selling that stuff out there to the world. That was a benefit to the people. That's gone away. Now we have to eagerly work to try and acquire this money, and the money comes from the consumer out there who is spending in the retail market, trading all those stuff so that we can eagerly sell it to each other to hopefully get some trickle down from it. It's only advantageous to the people who are printing up the monies, issuing out the debts, importing the foreign production, selling that foreign production, okay? That's who it's advantageous for. Everybody else is down at the bottom of the line wondering, like, man, why is it so hard down here? Why is it so different? And you have to think, you are waiting to get the money to come trickling down to you after it's already been in circulation and the economy has already made use of it. You think about it, we are a consumer economy. If the consumer is the top 10% of people or the top 20% of people, what are 80% of the people doing? Right? Not a lot for the consumer, not a lot for the economy as far as being the consumer. I mean, they do shuffle stuff around, they serve the beers and flip the burgers, drive the trucks, do stuff like that. But as far as like doing that sort of thing and then taking that effort and going and becoming the consumer with it, no, not anymore. You do that effort and you can barely maintain yourself. You're certainly not going to expand your operations like back in the day where you would be able to afford a family, a home, and a car. See, this is happening. You can blame it on AI. That's fine. Go ahead. But Cantillon described it. When you look at it from the Cantillon effect, it all makes sense. It all lines up. And AI is just simply a symptom of this. It's going to get worse going into the future if you don't position yourself well. You have to think, man, if my day job ain't going to be enough anymore, like Jamie Dimon says, what he says, relying on I can work hard, says the Generation Z, it's not even like, Generation Z can't rely on I can work hard, says Jamie Dimon. You can't do it. If you do not position yourself to be in line to get the first money, how do you do that, right? Well, you got to be an asset holder. You got to be in houses. You got to be in stocks and bonds. You got to be in business. You got to be in a position in which that new money is flowing towards you, because if you're not in that position, you're going to have to eagerly work for it. And if you are doing that, most likely you are never going to be able to afford any of that stuff. And it's scary and sad. But knowing how it's happening, knowing why, like, you can go ahead and blame AI. Right? If you do that, if you focus in on AI and blame AI, then you will not be able to recognize it as something that was taking place and has been in motion for literally decades into centuries. And when you see it in this fashion, when you recognize it in this fashion, you can think, okay, how do I deal with that? How do I position? I have a day job, but is it going to be enough going into the future? Absolutely not. Maybe I have a day job that is good enough right now, but is that going to be the case going into the future? Probably not. Even if I was to train in one of the better jobs that is available right now, that is going to have enough pay going into the future, how well will that be when I get there? Is it actually going to be enough, or will it just be maintaining my life? Knowing that to be the case, that a good job doesn't matter anymore. Like, it matters. You have to go for, you better go for the best high paying job that you can, the best business that you can, all that other stuff. But then what you do with those efforts is absolutely the most important part. You have to deploy that into something that's going to have a return. If you do not do that, you will be left behind. That's what Jamie Dimon is saying here. The day job won't be enough. Good manufacturing jobs won't be enough. Right? And even if you had a good manufacturing job, unless you are taking extra money, extra effort, extra time in order to acquire beyond what it is, like in order to acquire a secure rate of interest beyond that of your occupation, that's what you need to do. Figure out a way to get a secure rate of interest beyond that of your occupation. When you do that, you can position yourself to become a property owner. Once you become a property owner, you will be separating yourself from the rest of the world out there, the rest of the economy. Yeah. Trying to prevent that is going to be very, very difficult. It's going to be almost impossible. A lot of people want to think and theorize and vote for and try to come up with some sort of way or reason that they can then reverse the circumstances that we now face. And that is going to be a very difficult, to me, impossible road. Great discussions, great conversations, great deep analyzing and, belief that it could happen is not something I believe is useless. Like, I'm not going to say that at all. Like, I think it's very useful to kind of go through those hypothetical ideas of what it is that can be done. It's good for, for the debate. It's good for understanding, reasoning, all that other stuff. But the ultimate outcome is going to be more war, more debt, and more separation between the rich and the poor. What are you going to do? Right? We can talk about all the things that would change that all you want. Like, that's fine. We can talk until we're blue in the face, but you're also going to have to take some actions. What is that action going to actually be? Sit around waiting, hoping, voting, or doing? That's the difference. All right. Standard nursery houses are up for other reasons. Deep's not sure you're using the appropriate definition of deflationary. So those who are interested in really getting a good understanding of not only the perspective that I have gained over these years from doing this. By the way, guys, today's the 8th birthday of this channel. Today, November 28th. 8 years ago today, I started this channel. And all the information, everything that I have ever come to the understanding, sharing with, I have left links down in the description for everything. There is nothing that I have hidden from you. I have started posting on Patreon. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over pretty much all the information again with the most updated understanding of our current situation that we have when I go back and review this information again. Those who want to join in on that are more than welcome. The Patreon link is down in the description. We did one of these speeches, Ben Bernanke, deflation, and making sure it doesn't happen here. Now, a gentleman, Felix, had joined in on that video that we were doing live in order to, start this process down on the Patreon of like reviewing all this information again. Felix was awesome to have in there. He asked me a bunch of questions while we were reviewing that speech. And he said during, as we were going through it, he says, man, you just gave me a better understanding of why it is that deflation is such a concern for the Federal Reserve and why it's such an issue that would be taking place going into the future, and how it is that inflation is not the fear. Right? Inflation is not the fear of the Federal Reserve. They like inflation. They want inflation. Persistently high inflation was their problem that they needed to, persistently too low of inflation rather than too high was the problem they needed to solve. And as we start breaking these things down, I know with our current understanding of the situation we now face, going back and reviewing that old information is going to give us such a better understanding of what they were thinking then and how it is that the outcome was delivered from that thinking process back then. I know it seems kind of outdated or maybe old or maybe almost even useless to a lot of people, but going back and reviewing that stuff on Patreon was absolutely, like, to me, is probably going to be the best way to get a good current understanding of our situation, especially when it comes to the credible threat theory that I have developed. You will learn it as well as you possibly can by following those videos, and we're going to probably produce those over the next month to 2 months. Highly encourage you to go join in. Most of the speeches we have already read here on the Uneducated Economist, and the membership channel here on the Uneducated Economist YouTube, we're going to continue on with those. When the speeches are coming out, the most relevant ones, we're going to read those regularly on the Uneducated Economist YouTube membership only channel. But the Patreon, we're going to do a review of all the old speeches again with the most current understanding of our situation. And I tell you, it's going to be very, very profound for a lot of people to go and listen to that video series as we go through them. And you get to support the Uneducated Economist the whole time. So, all right. If you like silver and gold, consider this short-term investment opportunity. Yeah, I love watching silver go today. Holy moly, what did it get up to? It was like, what are we at here on silver? It's like $57 or some crazy number. Let me look it up here real quick. Where are we at? We are right now, come on, there we go, $57.02. Wow, that is up there. I knew it would eventually get up to this number, but it's just like, it's still like, it's pretty exciting to see silver run like that. Anything you have as far as holdings go, when you have purchased it a long time ago and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting, and somebody says to you, don't worry about waiting, man. I would rather wait, 10 years too early, be 10 years too early than 1 minute too late. And I think, man, right now, I wonder how many people are jumping into silver thinking that they're too late on the game. And I personally, I think silver has a hell of a lot. Really, on a 10-to-1 ratio to gold, it should be around $400 anyway. So at $50, it's still, in my mind, it's still pretty cheap. $57, really. It's still fairly inexpensive when you look at it in that way. And really, this is like not that much higher than what it had achieved in the early 80s, back when the Hunt brothers tried to corner the market. So even silver at 57, although is as oh, good Lord, I can't speak, is as exciting as it is, it's still not that, like, it's just not that bad, right? It could have a lot more to go. It should really be up well over $100, $150 an ounce. That would be really where we should get excited about it. All right, moving on. I like silver, especially when my kids are playing with the rounds. Yeah, me too. I like it when Freddie, pulling it out and counting it and stuff. What's the silver ores in China not manipulated here? Oh, what's the silver price in China? I don't know, because everything is priced in dollars. So, I mean, you could probably price it in yuan and then price it in dollars and see what the difference is as far as the exchange rates go. And there's a lot of people who do that. Like you'll do a carry trade, like you'll go from one currency to another and then buy gold in that currency because you can get a better price for it. Those are called carry trades because essentially it's like carrying your currency to another window, switch it over for another one, go and buy gold, and then go and exchange it back to the other currency, and just kind of keep doing this. The carry trades. People, that's a whole investment strategy that people do, you know? And they'll do it a lot in currencies. You know, they'll do it in, but you know, gold is somewhat of a currency, so yeah. All right, a few more minutes here, guys. When Kiyosaki tried to barter with gold, the lady said, "Spot." Huh. Deplorable. Let's see here. Speaking on going live, I got to go to work. I will be listening. As always, take care of my friends. Take care, you bet. Deplorable. You have a great day at work, man. I like the yellow rock. Everybody does. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I got to go back to work myself. We got 167 people watching with 60 likes. I wanted to share the article with you guys and just show how it is that the mainstream media is going to twist what it is that's actually taking place within our economy. To know that Cantillon described that your day job, your factory job would eventually no longer be competitive, and that the average everyday person who is within the economy will struggle ever increasingly more as the increase of new money pours into the system that separates the rich from the poor. We just recently, maybe I'll go and find the link to it, we did a live stream, public accessible, it ain't like paid, you know, there ain't no paywall with this one, where we broke down the three chapters in the Cantillon essay. Chapters 6, 7, and 8. It's part 2 of that essay. Increase and decrease of money to the state and the further reflections upon that topic. These 3 chapters, if you don't read anything else when it comes to the economy, read those 3 chapters. Right? I mean, if that is it and nothing else, I would recommend those 3. If you were never going to take in any other information again, read those 3 first. Once you get that understanding of what is happening with the new money coming in, separating the rich from the poor, driving out the domestic manufacturers, ever increasing amounts of foreign production, it will make all this stuff make a lot more sense. How it is that they are going to struggle forever to try and get manufacturers to come back, when literally the forces that are now creating the problems of driving the manufacturers out are not getting relieved. Like, unless they relieve those pressures, which is essentially our high standard of living, it won't come back. Those chapters totally describe it. And so I'm going to leave a link down in the description. It's a fairly long video, but it's a great video. And again, we go over all 3 of them. We read the 3 chapters. We have a discussion about it. The comment section was awesome during that video. And again, it's, you know, it takes some work to get through it, but you know, how else are you going to get this information? I mean, you can go and read it yourself. There's a link down in the description to the essay for Amazon affiliate link. I will get a little commission off of it, but you do not have to buy that essay off of Amazon. You can get it for free at the Mises Institute just by, you know, typing into the Google search, Richard Cantillon essay on economic theory. Go and download the essay for free, read it at your leisure. But those 3 chapters, absolutely most important thing you could ever possibly read. I feel that it should be mandatory for every single person to read that. Not just high school students or anything else. Every single person should have the understanding of those 3 chapters. Once we have that, I guarantee you we would not be voting or seeing a lot of the outcomes that we see now within this economy. It would be a much different place. So again, follow the Uneducated Economist on all those different platforms. Check out that video. Go hang out with us on Patreon. I think that's probably one of the coolest spots that you can go to right now as far as getting up-to-date information on what is happening right now, because I'm going to be reviewing speeches that were giving over a decade ago that described the problems that they were facing and what it is that they needed and what is that we have for a result today, and watch those 2 kind of line up together. And I don't know anybody else who's going to be doing that for you. You can go and find those speeches for yourself, or you can just go and become a Patreon member and, you know, sit back and listen and join in on the conversations when you can. All right, Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.